Good morning, KOTA territory. This is Jack Siebold here with Dennis Cody, who did an interesting story yesterday. We're covering that homeless issue quite a bit. It's something that's extremely important. And yesterday, the Cornerstone Rescue Mission was talking about their program reaching out to the homeless veterans. And you know, when that happened, you talked about not just that issue, but the overall issue, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. We talked about basically one of the things I wanted to ask a lot about was the Hope Center closing, because it seems like homeless veterans are an issue, but the homelessness as a whole is an even bigger issue. And with the lack of a day center, I wanted to know if there was a plan there.
Yeah, and you know, one of the questions you asked was pretty good about the city council. They voted that the Hope Center was not going to be a good fit for a community where they initially said okay to, yes, you know, the mayor says they're not responsible for it closing. That's technically correct, but they did have a hand in making it a little more difficult. But what did I say? Dennis Cody?
I was going to let it go.
Okay, all right. Somebody just put a little note in front of me that I said Dennis Cody instead of Cody Dennis. Oh, that's okay. I'm old. I forget. At least I remembered your two names.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't know which one it was, but there
I've got
it is.
two first
Anyway,
names, so.
let's get back to the serious thing, and that is on the homeless issue. And you did talk to the mayor about the city council, and they could have stepped up and kept what they had initially said. They didn't. So is it now one of these things? It's about time to go past whose fault on this and just get a solution.
Right. No, and that was a lot of what Jason had said in the end, was that, you know, regardless of who's at fault with this closing down in the end, he thinks it would have been unavoidable, and that we probably need to find a new solution regardless. And it's going to be interesting to see what they come up with in the next few weeks. And yeah, with the city council, I think that if nothing else, optically, it looked really bad to say no to that without having another plan in place.
All right, Cody. And it's 8, Cody. I got it right this time. Anyway, let's listen to what Mayor Salamun did say, because you had quite a long interview with him. This is several minutes, and what people hear on air is usually 15, 20-second soundbite. Hence, the segment beyond the soundbite. Anyway, so let's listen to Mayor Salamun. Okay.
I did want to ask, are there any plans from the city side to sort of address this lack of a day center now?
Well, I think for the question of the Hope Center closing, I'm really disappointed to hear about that. Obviously, they've been a great organization for a long time. My wife used to work there at one time, and you know, it's really disappointing news. Now, what the city has done is allocated more funding towards homeless services in 2024 than any city council ever has in the history of the city, as far as I'm aware, out of our general budget. So now what they're looking at is conversations that we've had. I had a conversation with the Hope Center this week to ask, you know, about the services. Where's the mail center going to go? Laundry services, those sorts of things. Those are aspects that they are working on. The city itself, the city government isn't necessarily involved in that, except that I certainly hope that all of these nonprofits and organizations can work together to figure out how to fill in the gaps, because there will be a gap.
So those conversations are happening then, sort of how to address that in the future?
They're happening. It's not just city government. In fact, it's better when we're not involved. We tend to slow things down, but those organizations need to be agile and look at what's available. You know, I think mail services is probably one of the more immediate needs where people are going to get their mail. I believe the Hope Center, if you talk to them, and I'm sure you have, they'll educate you about what they're doing with their guests to figure out, hey, here's what you need to do in the next steps. Here's how you potentially get your mail forwarded somewhere else. A lot of their mail is also from people who already have a home, and they just kind of kept their mail going, so they're trying to make sure that those folks are notified of their mail services. But those in need today, I think that's a gap for sure. And you know, I'm hopeful that the organizations continue to talk and collaborate figure it out. You know, whether it's in time for December 8th, I don't know.
And that was going to be my next
Yeah.
question: is with the colder months coming up, how important is it that this gets done soon?
Well, the colder months are here, and for mail, it's more about a logistical thing. So they think the Hope Centers talk to the post office, they talk to various churches and organizations, and some of it is it's a lot of people, and so figuring out where that can go and how that's sustained. The Hope Center is not in business because they don't have the funding. The expenses got too high, and they obviously had issues with their landlord and that sort of thing, and even had they been permitted the permit for their new building, it would have been a couple of years out, so it was going to be a challenge either way. So it's disappointing to hear about them. We're rooting on that there are others that will step in and fill the gap. I know conversations are being had by these service providers. They're the ones best equipped to do it, and that's what I always want to say is, who's doing the best work serving the homeless population, and how can they best fill in the gap? If they were better staffed, better resourced, what could they do? And so I think that's the conversations that are had right now.
Mm-hmm.
But logistically, it's a challenge. You mentioned Lisa, you asked Lisa the same questions earlier, and logistically here, it's a challenge to do mail services. That's one of the issues. So I'm hopeful that we can figure out something. But that's the Hope Center right now. That's kind of their goal. They're going to continue on their mission even though they don't have a facility. And I think they'll continue to work towards that end.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the talks that are ongoing, is this just between individual organizations, or is there any effort to bring all of the organizations working on homelessness together at the same place to have a big discussion about this?
Well, Sheriff Mueller, Chief Hedrick, and I are working on bringing service providers just to talk about homelessness in our community to begin with, because we have a lot of folks, lots of organizations serving this population. What can we do if we work better together? So those conversations are beginning. We just had a resolution said we would like to see homelessness reduced in our community. How does that work? The city has a part, but not the part. But we want to bring a table together to bring those folks who are actually doing the work, who are actually in the trenches together, and have those kind of conversations. Those will be ongoing. It's a long-term. There's a lot of long-term discussions and there's short-term discussions. I think the day center closing is more of a short-term deal right now. How do we figure that out in the long term? How do we build a system that's more sustainable, not necessarily through the city government, but through the service providers in our community?
Oh gosh, come on, come back to me question. So the city council did vote no on that permit for the relocation. Do we worry that kind of can give people the wrong impression about what the city council thinks about these services, about the importance of them?
Well, I can't speak for the city council, so I want to make sure if you have questions to the city council, you direct it to them.
I'll ask them.
I do think they certainly had no intention of closing the Hope Center. They weren't saying no to the Hope Center. I think they were saying no to the Hope Center in a residential area. That was the stance that they took. And now there's this situation, but honestly, I think the situation may have come one way or the other. I will say that.
Okay, that was Mayor Salamun. Now let's discuss a little bit about what he was talking about. I found it very interesting that he said it sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes it is better for the community to step forward and be the spear, so to speak, as opposed to the city. The city, they could gum up the works, hence having to decide where the Hope Center went.
Yep, absolutely. I think that's precisely what he was referring to. He was saying that if a private entity does something like this, it's a lot easier for them to just sort of set up shop and do it. Whereas with the city, they have a bunch of different procedures they have to go through. There's a little bit of bureaucracy there. It can be a lot easier just for a private company to do some of these things.
And toward the end of the interview, the mayor did discuss, look, he said there are short-term issues and there are long-term issues. And he talks about the Hope Center being a short-term issue that they need a solution for. The long term, and they can work the short term. Somebody can do something on that, but the long term on homelessness, how do you handle that?
Well, I think the short term is, is a lot easier. It's a lot easier for them to just sort of set up shop and do it. It can be a lot easier just for a private company to do some of these things.
Yeah, and he talks about the Hope Center being a short-term issue that they need a solution for. The long term on homelessness, how do you handle that?
And that's one of the questions I had for them. It doesn't seem like there's a big answer for what we're going to do to just tackle this issue altogether. And that was a lot of what I wanted to get out of them was, are these conversations happening? And, if so, what do we plan to do about the issue? And it seems like if those conversations are happening, they're behind closed doors right now. And we'll see if they have a plan. But I do hope so.
Well, here's my take on it, and this is one of the things that it's not a negative thing; it's just a reality, and that is, whatever solutions they have today, whoever they help today, tomorrow, there's going to be another homeless person.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
And in order to solve that, you have to find out how you address that root cause of why people are ending up homeless in the first place. I think that
And there is no quick fix on that.
right, exactly. It's a complex issue.
Okay. Well, that's it for us today. That was another Beyond the Soundbite, and we will see you again. Bye.
Bye, guys.